David Cameron is on a mission to renegotiate the UK's relationship with Europe ahead of a referendum on British membership likely to be held in 2016. One of the Prime Minister's main objectives, and where he's likely to meet the most resistance from his European counterparts, are his plans for curbing immigration. With me to discuss this issue are Ian Preston, Professor of Economics at University College London, and Quentin Peel, Chatham House Fellow and FT columnist. Ian, could I start with you? Can we just have the facts? Sort of, what is there a problem here with migration?
There are two things that people worry about, which is effects on the labour market, that immigrants might be taking job opportunities away from British-born workers, or competition might be driving down the wages of British-born workers. There's very little evidence to support this. On the contrary, I think probably the effect on average wages is positive. And the other thing people worry about is the effect on public finances. There's some figures looking over the decade from about 2000 through about 2010. Immigrants were paying about 35% more than they take out in terms of claims on benefits or claims on public services. And that comes out to around 2 billion a year over that period. The government have expressed an ambition or aspiration to bring immigration down to the tens of thousands. At the moment, net immigration is running at more like 300,000 a year. That's driven by gross inflows, which are probably about twice that, and about half of those are coming from within the EU and half coming from outside the EU.
Quentin, the Prime Minister's got we don't know all the details and we may not know them for a while, but there are some plans to, in particular, restrict certain benefits that people coming in to Britain could claim or not. I mean, this is the thing that's going to really be the red flag to his European counterparts. Do you think he's got any chance of persuading them to go along with this?
I think he's got a hell of a problem ahead. I mean, he's got a firm commitment that he made in his party manifesto that incoming immigrants from other parts of Europe won't be able to get welfare benefits, in-work benefits, for the first 4 years that they're here, and then they can get them. Now, if that is going to be a discrimination, that's to say British workers will be able to get such benefit sooner, but other European workers won't, that'll go right against all the European rules, against the treaties. And it will be resisted, I think, by the overwhelming majority of the other European countries. Certainly it'll be resisted in Central and Eastern Europe. And where David Cameron's gone into these negotiations, apparently saying to himself, as long as Angela Merkel and Germany support me, everything's going to be all right. I think he's now going to find that his problem is he hasn't done enough homework with the Poles and the Bulgarians, and indeed, at the other end of the spectrum, with the French. He's got to work much harder.
But there's also probably, I mean, even you mentioned the Germans. I mean, they've been quite clear, as far as you know, in saying that, up to here but no further.
The freedom of movement is to them a fundamental principle of the single market which Britain is greatly in favour of, that actually there should be effectively free labour mobility. And the economic crisis we've seen in the Eurozone underlines the importance of that to countries within the Eurozone, that actually workers should be able to move from countries where unemployment is rising to countries like Germany, where there's actually a real shortage of skilled labour. So they don't want to do anything to restrict that. They've some sympathy for Cameron on this welfare question, because there is also something of a backlash in Germany against, oh my goodness, the Romanians and Bulgarians are all coming as welfare tourists. I think that on the whole that's a myth, as Ian was implying earlier, rather than a real issue. But it is an issue of very real public perception. That's Cameron's problem at home.
Right. Ian, do you think he can square the circle?
I don't think even if he was successful, this is really going to address public concern, because my feeling is public concern is not so much driven by economics. Economics is partly behind it, but if you look at attitude surveys, things like this, what concern is most strongly correlated with is worries about cultural dislocation, social tension, and things like that, which are quite removed from the economic issues.
Do you see some scope for being able to address that if he actually focused on those latter issues that you...
I think it's a much more difficult question to address. Those concerns are coming from sort of the left behind people, people who are older people, less educated people. He needs to address, I think, broader things driving their general dissatisfaction with the way things are going in the country.
The truth is that It's a domestic issue. It's a domestic problem, but he's trying to make it a European problem. The answer to this problem really doesn't lie at the European level. It lies at the domestic level, where you must do much more to people who are feeling left behind, who've been voting for UKIP. That's a threat to him. That's a threat that the Conservative Party really feels. It's not a European issue.
Do you think patience within in Europe is running thin when it comes to the UK?
Yet again, David Cameron's got a very difficult balancing act between what he says in Europe and what he says at home. So for his home audience, he's trying to say, we're not going to let any of these migrants across the Mediterranean come to Britain, they've got to stay in Italy. That doesn't go down very well in Brussels, where it's seen that lots of these migrants want to come to Britain. That's why they're crossing the Mediterranean. So he irritates his European partners, but he fails to deliver for his domestic constituency.
Quentin Peel, Ian Preston, thank you both very much. And thank you for watching. For more on this and other topics covered by our analysis team, please go to ft.com/analysis. Until the next time, goodbye.